Warning, the following communications are not authorized. Please disable your signals and report to your local re-education center immediately. Failure to comply will result in immediate reprimand and capital punishment.
Maybe one day we will be able to not have the COVID warning. Gary Sheffield Jr., Eric Butler, how are you? Thanks for joining us, Gary.
How you guys doing, man? I'm ready to talk COVID lunacy.
At Gary Sheffield Jr. on Twitter, you got a great feed. I love listening to this guy. And
Thank you.
Once I found out you're on Outkick too, I love the readers on there too. So thanks for joining us. I want to get right into it. Eric's high off of Kanye's album. It's all he was talking about earlier. He's going to have a nice fresh walk in the summertime listening to Kanye. For what is it, 2.5 hours you said it is?
The album is 2 hours long. It's 26 songs. It's crazy. I got like 7 songs in and, I'm ready to listen to the rest.
Okay, so a second player. We were going to talk about Cole Beasley, NFL player for the Buffalo Bills. He got sent home for being near a guy who tested positive for COVID despite being fully vaccinated. And now a second player has come out and shared a letter. So I just want to show this and get your reaction, Gary. It's from Isaiah McKenzie, he's wide receiver, very fast, I believe. So they sent this crazy letter. Dear Isaiah, on August 25th, 2021, at approximately 2:15, while walking through the indoor field house and into the training room, you failed to wear a mask. Then at approximately 4:35 p.m. on August 25, for several minutes, unbelievable, you again failed to wear a mask in the meeting area for the weight room while gathered near other players after the offensive meeting. Your refusal to wear a mask occurred after you were informed that it was required for unvaccinated players as set forth in your 2021 club discipline schedule and as reiterated by signage throughout the club facility stating that unvaccinated players are subject to fines and discipline for failing to wear a mask. So, yeah, you received written warning for not wearing a mask. So the guy doesn't want to wear a mask. So he says, "You got me, NFL. You win." Cole Beasley responded. Again, that's the original guy to get suspended. "Don't worry, they got me too. But I was wearing a mask when I was in close contact with a fully vaxxed trainer who tested positive and still got sent home. So what's the point of masks anyways? Meanwhile, I'm here still testing negative and can't come back. Make it make sense." Gary, what's your initial reaction to this? I saw you tweeting about Cole Beasley, so that's why I wanted to ask you about it. How many players do you think on the Bills are unvaccinated and aren't going to get thrown under the bus for this?
I guess we're going to find out over the course of the season because some of these teams are going to show you they care more about these vax rules than they do winning football games. Cole Beasley being in trouble and being sent home for 5 days is not helping the Bills at all. That's not going to help them win games. And this is turning into Nazi Germany. And quite literally, like it's not going to be the premise is the same. It's not going to be the exact same. One's a mass genocide. The other is just mass protocol, right? They're trying to make sure that everybody's following these rules. And just because personally you want to do something different, the Buffalo Bills can make your life a living hell until you finally do grasp that you need to get vaccinated. And that's the whole point. They're trying to make everyone's life miserable. You can't go to restaurants, you can't go here. And you have a bunch of allies, like former allies, telling on each other. Oh, well, he went down this hallway at 6:42 without a mask on. And now everybody's paranoid that someone's going to snitch on them to the point where it's going to be so hectic that people are going to give in. You're going to start seeing players give in, get vaccinated and say, let me just get this over with and get out of the crosshairs. But hopefully Cole Beasley and other NFL players don't get in. They just don't. I just hope they don't fold.
Eric, the Buffalo Bills, and I was looking at all the contracts just yesterday. Me and my friends were comparing the top contracts for all the major leagues. And Jared Allen, their quarterback, has over $100 million in guaranteed money. So they've pumped all this money into him, and they're sending 2 wide receivers home a week before the week 1 starts. Is this we've gone past insane territory, Eric. I know you know that, but what does this say that they're willing to send home 2 people from the same position a week before the season starts?
Well, I'm going to strap the tinfoil hat on again and say it's eerily close. It's eerily close to Governor to New York, Albany, Buffalo. That was Andrew Cuomo's team. So it kind of makes sense that they're taking the hardest, strong line on this, being up in New York and just trying to make an example out of people. It's clear that, of course, winning games is now less of a priority than getting full compliance by guys who are, by any stretch of the imagination, are probably healthier than 99% of the country, right? These are professional athletes. It's not like they're frail old women who were sent into a nursing home to perish under Andrew Cuomo, right? These are guys who are big, strong. What's the oldest player in the NFL? 35, 30? Okay, maybe Tom Brady
Tom
is like
Brady.
39. Exactly, right? These guys, they're not old. They're in perfect health. And it's insane that they're monitoring these people like this. But again, that does seem to be par for the course. And they also have, I mean, we saw it last season, or maybe it was 2 seasons ago now, where they went all in on BLM and they put the names on the back of the helmets, just like the NBA put it on the court. So it's all about compliance. It's all about the narrative. Sports has become political theater, and it's not sports anymore. And that's why people are turning away from it. I mean, even when I was, me personally, I like golf. Sorry, my window's open. There's a big truck outside. But that guy, John Rahm, right? I mean, this guy's up 6 strokes in one of these tournaments, and they kick him out. I mean, golf of all sports, right? It's a caddy. It's the fresh air, 4 or 5 hours of just walking around outside. But the guy tested positive as he's 6 strokes up in a tournament, which leads me to believe it wasn't really affecting him that much. So we're watching the whole thing collapse with these rules that have clearly become way more than about safety, right? I think nobody can even argue that at this point.
Somebody had some money on that competition. I don't know which tournament it was. I want to read out what they had here on this Newsweek article about the NFL suspensions. $14,650 to violate the rule. McKenzie is injured, so maybe it's not as huge of a big a deal to their depth chart, but just for not wearing a mask in the facility, and it was outside the gym and like walking through a hallway, that's pretty insane. So they both got fined for that, and then the article title. Anti-vaxxer Cole Beasley defends Bill's teammate for violating. It's all crazy, but I want to see.
I don't get it. What is all this for? Like Cole Beasley, they're saying, hey, he's an anti-vaxxer. I don't understand, because for Cole Beasley, they're trying to make it seem as though the anti-vaxxers are spreading a virus and killing vaccinated people. That's not there, because the whole idea of getting vaccinated is that you're going to prevent yourself from dying. It's going to slow, your case is going to be less serious as being a vaccinated individual. You can still pass the virus, you can still get the virus, right? They're agreeing to all these things. So technically speaking, you can be vaccinated and you can still get the virus. You can still pass it to other vaccinated people. What's the point of the virus? And if the point is to survive, then the NFL shouldn't be worried about their players getting COVID. That's just they shouldn't be worried, because if they're vaccinated, they're going to have a less serious case. And if they're unvaccinated, they're not overweight, which it's been proven that people overweight or people with pre-existing conditions are essentially 99% of the deaths in this country. And to me, America does not have a COVID problem. We have a pre-existing condition problem.
I think we
have a corrupt politician problem.
Yeah,
obesity, COVID cases. I saw this the other day. The amount of people in hospital who are obese or morbidly obese. I'll find it in a bit, but there's a video out of Australia. I don't know how much you guys follow this. It's because we have reporters at our company who are in Australia, and they're really obviously in the darkness right now. So they had a guy who broke his quarantine rules, and they treated him like an international fugitive, enemy of the state, essentially. Great movie, by the way, if you guys haven't seen Enemy of the State with Will Smith, one of my favorites. And they've been calling him a COVID fugitive. They've had primetime news stories about it, and they finally caught him, and they sent a SWAT team after him, and they paraded him out in like chemical protective gear. I want to say CBRN, but I don't know if anybody would get that. So here's the video I found of them parading him out. It's only 20 seconds long, but just check this out. So they sent a SWAT team in with the shield, of course, masks up, mask on, and there he is. They're parading him out like this.
They are kidding.
They are not kidding.
They are kidding me. This looks like Monsters Inc. What are they doing?
Let it play one more time. They don't look happy to be there, those cops, to be honest. But like, this is crazy. Anthony Karam, he said he had been quarantining the whole time, but he wasn't at home where you're supposed to be. So in Australia, they will send police to come find you. They have police responding to anyone who snitches on somebody else for having more than like their family at their home. Of course, it's even worse in Australia where you're not allowed to leave your home at all, but they voted in a socialist person. So I guess get what you pay for there. Gary, do you think, I don't know, where do you live, Gary? I don't know what state.
I'm in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So
nice.
you're
Yeah.
enjoying some of the freedom. I don't
am.
know how bad it can get for you guys with all your freedom, but here it seems like they know that it's not going to go. We can't go that far, so we're just ushering out all our vaccine passports right now, and also you're not allowed to go on a plane or a train starting in, I think, October 1st if you're not vaccinated. So there's varying degrees. We're at like a 7 out of 10. Australia is like a 10 out of 10. How do you guys feel about this? Gary, you go first.
Well, we have guns, right? So
Yeah.
that's just the fact of the matter. So Australia, a lot of people are saying, well, why are these people taking this? How can Australians possibly, how can you allow this to happen? Well, they gave up all their weapons. So realistically, what are they supposed to do at this point? Now you're just a prisoner. You are a fugitive. If they want to call you a fugitive, you are a fugitive. That's the way it works. And your freedom it's really how much power you have. If you don't have any power over your government, and they now have all the buttons to push, and they can force you to do whatever you want because you can't defend yourself, well, you got what you paid for. If you want to give up your guns with failed logic, and you want to all line up for vaccination, if you want to go do those things, that's your choice. But now you deal with the consequences. And everybody else seemed like conspiracy theorists by saying that what happened to Australia, that could have happened to us. Never said that's crazy. Now you're watching it unfold, and now nobody on one side of the spectrum politically is talking about Australia like it's an issue. It is a problem. And frankly, it can happen to different states like New York and California. It can happen in California, but it probably can't happen in Arizona because of the rights that we've defended.
Eric, a lot of people say, oh, Australia, since they had a school shooting and they were going to get, I always get that feeling when I say certain things that we're getting banned off YouTube just this minute. But they did their whole buyback thing, which of course is give us your gun in exchange for some money or else we'll come take it from you. And then they said, oh, school shootings didn't happen again. But violent crime pretty much stayed the same. It didn't really make a difference, except now you don't have a way to defend yourself when you're so close to literal socialists in New Zealand, and then of course China. Eric, do you agree with him on this? What's obviously there's protests in Australia. There's quite a few of them, but they bust those down pretty quickly. Is there any recourse for a populace in Australia if they really don't want this to happen to them, other than like what can they do?
I don't know what they can do, and it is sad because no matter how many people you see protesting, right? I mean, if you have thousands of people, they break the police line, it's clear that the politicians, the powers that be over there, do not care what people think, right? I mean, same thing in New York. You have a couple thousands of people protesting outside of City Hall. But if those people, if Bill de Blasio cared anything about what people thought, this would have ended more than a year ago. So it's clear that they don't really, I mean, no amount of protesting is going to work. Unless, of course, you're a socialist commie protesting, in which case they will capitulate to every single one of your demands. And I think also it is scary, like even how you just said a couple moments ago that saying certain words, you feel like you're going to get kicked off YouTube, which is true. And that's the step right before, or maybe not right before, but maybe a couple steps before you becoming a fugitive for having said that you don't like Joe Biden on Twitter, or having said that you don't want to wear a mask, right? There's only a couple steps between, talking about a school shooting and being completely, vilified for having a certain thought. And last thing about Australia is apparently and I think I actually read a Rebel News article about this, about some truck drivers who are planning to quote unquote shut down the country this coming Tuesday, I believe. And that might, if they actually go through with this, I don't know. I mean, everybody's got, they all have to be in uniform to get this done. But that might be something that could send a signal to even the most corrupt socialist politicians, like, all right, these truck drivers aren't taking it anymore, and we, for better or for worse, need them. I would back that. I know it sounds extreme, and a lot of people are going to say, well, there must be a better way. I mean, you got to think about what they're telling these people to do. I mean, they just called this guy a COVID fugitive and walked him out like a perp. They had this like perp walk, and it almost seemed like a Saturday Night Live sketch. Like it's almost to the point where it's like they want you to be angry, right? They want you to do something extreme, so when you do, they can take even more power and say, well, see how crazy these people are acting. It's like something. I mean, we've come full circle right now, and I don't know. I pray that Australian level of authoritarianism does not reach the States. But another great point, we do have guns.
It's a very good point. No, I agree with you on that. And as for the Australian truck driver thing, I don't know if that's going to happen. A lot of people have said all along the way that these things are going to happen. People are going to rise up, but it might be time where that stuff actually starts happening. There's a group in British Columbia, albeit a Facebook group, but it's, I think, like 30,000 or something businesses have agreed they're not going to use a vaccine passport because they're the first ones to usher it out. Look forward to more stories on that, you guys, if you're watching. And so maybe it is time, and maybe people are going to start doing something, because this is the end game, I guess. In Australia, maybe the end game is you can't leave your house without permission at all. And we're going full straight communism, but with a smile on her face. And they've got this new COVID what they're calling a quarantine camp out in Australia by an airport, which is insane. They're saying everybody's asking for it. And they just built that now. It's like a mix of what happened with Canada, but plus the lockdowns that sort of happened at different times in Canada, where we had the COVID hotels, some of which owned by China, by the way. But now they're building straight quarantine facilities. And I'm sure if they start sending people out there, they're going to be like, oh, look, we're sending all the people out there to keep you safe. And then
that's your Australian accent. All right. You got to work on that one.
It's authoritarianism, but with like a smile on your face. It's so creepy. We got a super chat here from Atomic Dog. Sorry, Eric. The paying viewers must be heard. I love the show, Andrew, and finally some real sports talk. Thank you, Atomic Dog. We'll keep that in mind. Do you have something to say before we get to this next article?
Oh, well, I was just saying, like, perhaps, along with the truck drivers, there's this image going around. I'm sure you've seen it on social media with the upside down American flag, and people are saying it's time. And, they're like, a line has been crossed. This is from our former guest, who I still am not 100% certain on how to pronounce her name, but I'm sure you remember her. Lines have been crossed. We have been degraded, demoralized, turned on by our own country's leadership, blah, blah, blah. I think it was originally posted by Ian Smith. Shout out to another, athletic personality, the gym out in New Jersey, where, and look, I saw this, not to toot my own horn, but I filed a lawsuit against Bill de Blasio more than a year ago. We could see this coming a long time ago. But now when the vaccine passports start coming, restaurants start to stand up, and people are, the unions are protesting. We saw a lot with that footage out in New York. It's all happening. And maybe it's too late. Maybe it's not too late. Only time will tell. And again, I don't know what the end goal is. I mean, what do they really just want us to take this pharmaceutical and that's it? Or is there another goal beyond that? We don't know.
I think it's each government's going to take it as far as they can. I mean, I don't know if you mentioned the flag. I don't know if you guys know, but in Canada, our flag has been flying at half mast for like 2 or 3 months now. And on the official government of Canada website, it says it's indefinite because of those graves of natives they found. So we're just in a perpetual state of victimization here. I want to get to an Outkick.com article from Gary, but I wanted to ask you, Gary, is Outkick like the place where sports guys go where they don't have to be afraid to be like silenced? Because I feel like at least here, like, so 95% of the sports journalists are hard. Like they want to see the UFC shut down. Basically, is this the refuge for sports writers who don't follow like the line?
I don't really understand it. Yeah, Outkick is that way. Barstool's that way. I
Mm.
don't get it because the audience for the UFC, who do they think's watching the UFC? Like, who do they think? Do they think that Adam, who's eating a pear, who's wearing a mask in his car, is watching UFC? No, these are not people. UFC is a very physical, manly sport. The NFL, very physical, very manly. These are not liberal sports. They're just not. So I don't think these sports are really understanding who exactly their audience is, and it's turning people away. So yeah, people who are conservatives, and to be honest with you, I couldn't care less if someone is conservative or liberal. I don't care, but it's not going to be celebrated at these networks. So you work at ESPN, you want to write something about the UFC and staying open and sticking to their rights, you're going to lose your job for some other obscure reason that they make up. So yeah, it's very scary, and I'm thankful to work at Outkick.
Is that the one? Was that started by Jason Whitlock, or did he was he involved in the founding of it or something like that?
No, it was started by Clay Travis.
Oh, okay,
Right,
okay,
Clay
okay.
Travis.
Gotcha.
Another thing about people like Clay Travis, Matt Walsh has done it. Somebody, I don't know where it was in Arizona. Maybe that was Clay Travis, but actual people with like huge followings going out to these city council meetings and
Yeah.
these school board meetings. That's a great thing, but you just don't see that up where I live. Like, no, there's zero resistance against like school boards or anything. But people email me every day. Please help me. Like, what do you want me to do? You want me to show up and gather up your fellow parents for you? And like, I don't know. Canadians need to get a bit more spine behind it, I think. So a recent article of yours is about Carlos Correa already laying the groundwork to leave the Astros, and you get into how he's done in the last couple seasons, I believe. Shall I remind you, everyone, who they've lost the last couple of years? Yeah, they lost Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, George Springer, of course, to my Blue Jays. What I really wanted to ask you, Gary, is what do you think the reaction still is these days to the Astros players around the league? Has it, because I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention. I watch some of the Jays games, I think about once a week at this point. Is there still a reaction to Astros players and due to the cheating severity, or is that largely died down as somebody who's not following every day?
Well, at first it was an Astros thing, and everybody hated them as a unit. Now I think that whole Astros thing is gone just because they've proven they're a good team without the cheating per se. And so, and really more reports have come out that other teams were cheating in very similar fashion. So yeah, it's less of an Astros thing now, and it's more of a personal thing. A lot of people do not like Jose Altuve. They just don't. I mean, you still see Yankees games where people, and I've tried to stop it myself. I'm a Yankees talking head. I've said the whole doing the wave and doing the Jose Altuve stuff. That stuff should be gone. It's weird. I mean, it's at this point we're years down the road. I don't want to hear about it anymore. In terms of the Yankees, I mean, we're in a 12-13 game win streak, and we're sitting here talking about Jose Altuve and being upset about the 2017 World Series. I think it's kind of gone, and it was a little bit neutralized because of the no fans the next year. I know there were some when they went to Dodger Stadium, but other than that, it's kind of gone.
What other teams got caught coming out for cheating things? I missed that.
They were saying that the Yankees were involved in some fashion. They didn't have any proof really, but just speculation. And a lot of people in baseball were like, yeah, that doesn't surprise us. And that's part of the reason I follow Ryan Spader very closely. He's a good friend of mine. And he was always saying the second the Astros stuff came out, you do not want to go down this rabbit hole. It's part of the reason why the Astros didn't take any punishment was because they knew the Astros understood that other teams were doing very, very similar things. And they could have brought the whole thing down. It would have been a bad look on baseball. And I'm not here to say what they should or shouldn't have done, but that's at least what I heard is part of the reason why we saw it go down the way it did.
Did they ever prove, and Eric, you might not be familiar with this, but did they ever prove the electronic buzzer theory where they had a buzz, I think if it was a breaking pitch, and that was the reason why I think it might have been Altuve didn't want them to tear off his shirt at home plate? Did they ever prove that? Oh, Gary, Eric's not going to know. Yeah.
No, I have no
okay,
idea.
yeah.
No,
Okay, yeah. I thought we were calling on Eric. I was like, yeah. No, I think the buzzer thing was just speculation and looking like a little bump on his shirt, a lot of speculation, and and just unanswered questions. I don't think the buzzer thing was real. I have no idea. Some of the videos look ridiculous. Like there's no way that this guy wasn't using something. And then other videos, I'm like, we're reaching. So it's hard to tell what to believe. We know they were cheating in some fashion. They admitted to that. But some of the players were just not. It seemed like we were inconveniencing them by having them apologize and having them take accountability. And that's half the problem. They're like, what else do you want? What else do you want me to do? You know what I mean? Like drop it. Like 2 weeks later, they're acting like we're harping on something. You just ruined the game for 2 years. So obviously we're going to care. Fans of baseball who have been watching since they were kids, we care about the integrity of the game, at least somewhat, right? We're not obsessed with the integrity of the game. We love the steroid era, all that stuff. But when it comes to knowing what pitch is coming, that's more than half the sport is figuring out what the pitcher's throwing. So you just ruin the game. So yeah, it was just a weird scenario. And right now, I think Correa is disliked by half the league. Altuve is disliked by half the league. But Bregman and a lot of those other guys who are involved, they're just not taking that type of flack because they actually owned it and apologized.
Yeah, and you say the steroid era, and that just reminds me, I was going to say was for most of history in baseball, it's better to cheat and then get caught, even if you know it, than to not cheat at all. I think of A-Rod, who had a $220 million contract and only missed, I think, 150 games. And then who is the outfielder for the Brewers who got really jacked? And then Ryan, you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, Ryan Braun.
Ryan Braun, exactly.
Yeah.
Royd Braun, as I used to call him. He got suspended for 100 games, I think, as well for HGH. Still huge contract, huge numbers. In the end, it's worth it for these guys. So until they do something about it where it's really not worth it for them, then I think people are going to keep doing it. And remember, Mark McGwire hasn't done steroids once as he stared into Congress of all
Barry
things.
Bonds. I remember Barry Bonds. I was a kid out in the Bay Area, and Barry Bonds was huge.
Yeah.
This guy had
Next question, because it's stupid.
the tree trunk neck.
Humongous.
I have a question though, because what, not as far as like cheating and steroids and stuff, but as far as baseball is concerned, you would think that they would be gaining in popularity simply because they haven't taken the entire like SJW like super left wing political stance like the NFL and the NBA. But I mean, are they gaining traction, or are they taking advantage of that? I guess is the question I'm asking you.
To be honest with you, baseball, and I've tried to tell people this, baseball is not going to become a major attraction sport no matter what you do. It's kind of capped just because now we have our cell phones. Like we have the internet, we've got Netflix, we have all these different short-term ways of really entertaining ourselves. Baseball is becoming even harder to show to kids and say, this is worth your time. And when kids don't want to sit down for 4.5 hours, the game is long. And I know people have talked about trying to speed it up. Speeding a game up from 4 hours to 3 hours and 45 minutes isn't going to do jack. Okay. If you shorten the length of the movie Lincoln by 15 minutes, it's not going to matter. It's still a long movie. So people are not going to want to watch it. They'd rather watch an episode of Ted Lasso for 45 minutes and then take off. And that's just the way, and go travel abroad in Europe. That's the way our young group is going to be evangelized, is with short-term entertainment. And baseball is just not that. So while I do applaud them for not going far left, I always applaud people for not going far right or far left. Try to stay neutralized. And that's what people loved. But ultimately, you can only do so much to actually build an audience. Baseball is a little bit capped.
Well, I think for me personally, as not really a baseball fan, it's just more fun to go to a game, right? Like I couldn't really sit on the couch and watch it all the way through. But when you're in the stadium, you feel the vibes, you could grab a hot dog or whatever, a beer, is much more entertaining that way. You know, you're out with some friends, and it's a little bit more difficult perhaps to get those eyes on the television screen with, well, I was just curious because everybody else, I mean when the COVID-19 hit and the NBA, I think, was the first to shut down, I was like, whoa, guys, like, calm down. Like, chill out with this. Now, knowing what we know now, it seems even more extreme. But even at the time, I was like, is this really necessary? And almost 2 years later, we're still playing these games with these tyrannical politicians. But it is what it is.
It didn't seem real, did it? Like watching the whole Rudy Gobert thing, it seemed like a movie. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing with one case? Like, can you imagine if someone went down with the flu and you're like, oh, there's been one case of the flu in the Toronto Raptors organization, and they're like, we'll shut the whole league down. Yep. What are we doing? Now our goal is to have 0 cases at this point of COVID. That's what Australia would tell us too. Their goal is to have 0 cases of COVID. You have 3 cases of COVID, it's not dead.
Is not attainable, and that's how they get their power. Is like, as long as there's 1 case floating around there, then they will always have power. And I was talking to Andrew a long time ago. I've reverted to watching 1990s NBA on YouTube as a way to escape from all the madness. And it's crazy. I was just watching like the 95 playoffs or something, and they were like, oh, so-and-so went down with the flu. And it's just like, they just so nonchalantly, like, he got the flu, so he didn't play. And the game kept going. There's still 40,000 fans in the stadium.
Well, there is the flu game, though.
Which, and I was watching. Now,
it's amazing.
Don't judge me for this. I mooch off my parents' Netflix, and I found myself watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan series on Netflix. And apparently, he says it was food poisoning. It wasn't even the flu.
Right.
I still haven't watched Malice at the Palace documentary either. Interested to see Meta World Peace's take on that.
I just watched it. And I said to myself, how are they going to inject the cultural, the politicization, whatever? How are they going to turn this into like a SJW thing? And they do. So.
Oh God.
They do. They sure do. Yeah.
They sure do.
Watched it.
Yeah.
You guys, you want to go over that, and then we'll let you go, Gary. I want to hear about that. Please tell us.
I mean,
go for it.
I don't understand personally. Just from watching, I watched it a couple weeks ago. I'm like, dude, what are they? I was like, what do these people do? I was like, first off, you pushed a guy, and then a fight broke out. You ran into the stands. They acted like they were pulled out into this. They act like they were pulled out into the stands. That was the first thing. And me personally, I didn't have a problem. Honestly, I did not have a problem with Ron Artest at the time going out into the stands and fighting somebody. I honestly didn't have a problem with that because people overstep. They just do. If you throw something onto the court and you hit, say, Michael Jordan in the head with a Gatorade bottle, you deserve to be punched in the face by Michael Jordan. You do.
Didn't he punch the wrong guy, though, Ron Artest?
He absolutely did punch he punched the wrong guy. And the right guy showed up on camera. They actually went and found him. Somebody, I guess the lead investigator knew the person who threw the water.
Oh,
so that's how they found the guy. He knew him personally. He was his neighbor, next door neighbor. So, you deserve to be punched in the face. If you throw a Gatorade bottle and I hit LeBron James on opening night at Staples Center, if LeBron comes out into the stands, I don't want to hear a story about racism or about being inequality about why he came out into the stands and how he felt like a disenfranchised black man. I don't care about
Is that what they said in that?
It was along the lines of just like victimhood nonsense. To me, if I throw a bottle and it hits LeBron, I deserve to be punched in the face. That's it. So if he comes out into the stands, there's no victim mentality. There's none of it. It's all is fair game. And to be honest, I was watching the video and they were all reluctant to explain the video like it was a stain on their careers. To be honest with you, any real like normal person didn't have a problem with what they did. We were just kind of amazed at the suspensions.
And especially the players that were involved. Like, it's not like you don't expect Ron Artest to be upset. It's not like you don't expect Jermaine O'Neal to be upset. Eric, what was the full social justice angle? Can you add anything to that?
I just remember how they kind of take it back to their childhood. So they want to make it seem like these guys are all sort of victims of societal inequality and stuff. And they harken back to, Jermaine O'Neal was trying to help his family and how they were basically just these poor people who were not they take it all the way back to their childhood. And it's like, okay, like, unfortunately, for better or for worse, that's a story of 90% of the NBA. Like, you grew up maybe a little poor, you had a basketball, you made it. Like, you officially made it. So to continue to use the past as a reason that you are not guilty of anything, I think is a little bit silly. And they have to sprinkle it in there, right? They will never just tell the story of the fight. There always has to be more about it. There always has to be a racial element to it. And I could probably afford to watch it one more time. I was doing a couple things while I was watching it, but I just remember them going back and talking about these guys' childhoods, as though that alleviates them of anything they do in the future, anything they do as a grown man doesn't really matter because they had a tough childhood. That's what I took from it. And it's just silly. It's like, guys, you made it, you worked hard, you lifted the weights, you hit the weight room, you did the layups, you spent all the time, but now you don't have to take responsibility for something that you may or may not do. And like you said, you don't even have to take all the blame, dude. You were completely disrespected. So if you want to go out there and do a little bit of street justice, that's fine. But don't blame all of your little insecurities and little this and that on, you grew up with a single mom or whatever. It's a little victimhood for sure.
They do it in Ted Bundy too. It's like it'll be like a situation with me, and if I do anything good, we want to celebrate it. And if I do anything bad, they'll just say, well, Gary grew up on ketchup sandwiches and bounced around from foster care to foster home to foster home. And it's like, just because you went through a trauma, like any type of trauma in your life, it doesn't just excuse everything that follows. And all the good can't be. So let's just celebrate all the good, and then all the bad, it's just a product of the system. It has nothing to do with Ron Artest. It's got nothing to do with Steven Jackson. They were just victims of right. Steven Jackson. And I'm like, these guys, listen, you guys are what's great about America. You can have a terrible childhood, which we did not care to listen to, by the way. And you can go make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in Jermaine O'Neal's case. That is fantastic. We love to hear that. So just tell us that you went and kicked some ass. We don't care why you did. We don't care. Like, trust me, nobody looks at Ron Artest and goes, oh, the mouse at the palace guy. We just think of him as the crazy, really good basketball player who had a little screw loose. And all the players explained, this guy's kind of crazy. That's what we thought about the guy. We don't sit there and go, well, their legacies are overshadowed by the mouse at the palace. No, we actually think it's fun. We watch it on YouTube from time to time. Like, let's relax.
I feel like he's kind of like Rod, like the next generation's Rodman, Ron Artest, like a little crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
yeah, tough guy, a bit shorter. I want to go back to the days where there was street ball leagues in the summer with the millionaires playing in it. Like Fat Joe had a team, and like Kevin Garnett's playing on these teams. Allen Iverson's.
The Bronx. Shout out
these
Bronx,
millionaires are playing in street ball leagues in the summer for their free time. I wish I could go back and like actually go watch one of those things. That's crazy. But I think Gary mentioned it's time for him. He's got no time. I always say, no matter what, you've got a flight to catch. So I think Gary's on his way to Alaska. That's where he's going right now. So let's thanks for joining us, Gary. We love having sports guys. I want to get more people from Outkick on. Maybe I want to have you on my Rebel News show as well for a longer talk if you're up for it in the future. So we'll keep in touch. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, man. Flying private out on the Outkick jet to Australia. We got early vacation.
Very awesome. Good. All right. Thanks a lot, Gary. We're going to pay some of the bills here. Gary on outkick.com, of course. You can find him there. His Twitter is, of course, Gary Sheffield Jr. His Instagram is also Gary Sheffield Jr. A mistake I've made as to not having all my social medias the same. My show on Rebel News, Actual Justice Warrior with Sean Fitzgerald. That's his YouTube name. We talk about all the crazy stuff like race camps, which is from a Vice documentary where they, separate people based on race. Also, we talk about drag queens and, of course, Hassan Piker from the Young Turks. Really cool guy. Eric is on the TatumReport.com. Of course, I'm having trouble finding it. There we go, TatumReport.com. You'll find his articles there. He's a writer for them, as well as this podcast, and of course, his book, New York City Gotham 2020, Gotham Unglued. I have it in the background here. You should get it on Kindle or hardcover. Always love playing the game. Is it a person? Is it a pile of tires? Or is it just a corpse? We'll never know. Eric, did we ever find out if it's a pile of tires or a corpse?
I think it's a living, breathing person, not so much a corpse.
Not that one. The one where it's on the ground. That photo's not available anymore.
Yeah. No, I know. What
you're it's a person? Okay.
I think it's a person. I hope it's not a corpse. But it wasn't until you brought up the other possibilities, because I thought, if I recall, now, I think I actually took that photo on September 11th of last year.
Unbelievable.
I was going home from the memorial at the Towers, and Canal Street downtown Lower Manhattan is just, dude, it was something out of a movie. Like, and it's only gotten worse, mind you. So I thought it was just a person sleeping on the sidewalk. It wasn't until you made some other suggestions I thought maybe there is a little bit more than that. Who knows what's in there?
I think that it's, a set of winter tires is what I'm going with, but nobody can be sure. Let me just, retweet our show here is what I'm doing if you can't see me.
You're focused.
I'm very focused. Okay, so this friggin' weird newspaper cover from the Toronto Star up here in Canada. It's known as a very far left newspaper. They've been bought out recently by a right-wing group, which is weird because they haven't really changed. So maybe it's somebody just trying to control both sides. But look at this cover they put out, and they apologize for this today. Let me remind you, they apologized on the weekend. Yeah, I'll find that after. So these are apparently tweets they had found and put on the cover. But as you can see, the whole cover is about the same thing. If an unvaccinated person catches it from someone who's vaccinated, boo-hoo, too bad. I've no empathy left for them. Don't care if they die, not even a little bit. They don't deserve ICU beds. At this point, who cares? Stick to the unvaccinated in a tent outside and tend to them when the staff has time. No jab could mean no job. So, they knew what they were doing. In my opinion, Eric, they're gauging how far they can take this. I mean, this is what the people really want. When I see videos and articles and stuff about people having to go to hotels and people getting fined, on these pages, people agree with it. On these pages, they say, good, that's what they deserve. So I think they're just, let's be a motivation of change. Okay, and he gets into the 10 stages of genocide. That's our friend Huey Media. Congrats. Is he over 10,000 yet? He is.
I think so.
10,500. He can do the always desired swipe up, which is what everybody's going for. That's the first benchmark. That's all, nothing but money from there. So yeah, that's a crazy thing. And what do you think?
Can I just say though?
Yes, you can.
Okay, yeah. Now
I'll find their apology.
Different for me here in America, but I think those terms are acceptable, right? Like, I don't care, bro. I don't think the thing's gonna kill me, right? Like, I'm gonna get COVID. Like, I just don't. To me, and I know a lot of people are not gonna like this, but to me, COVID is an ailment of the brain, bro. This is your brain melting out of your ears, right? They're gonna tell you, we talk about this all the time, but from them, photos and videos of people in China passing out on the street and then disinfecting the entire sidewalk. That's also laughable right now. The strike, we saw the strike of 75 nurses or doctors and nurses in Florida who were just so overwhelmed. I mean, the hospital is so overwhelmed that we just decided to cut and run on these dying patients so we could do a little bit of political theater. Like, fine. I truly don't think that I'm going to get COVID and need to go to the hospital and I'm going to overwhelm. Like, these terms are acceptable. Fine. You want me to die? Fine. Let's go. The lines are drawn. It doesn't bother me that these people and it just we always talk about the hypocrisy, not just us. Obviously, it's a running gag, at least on the common sense. It doesn't even have to be right wing. I know people who have in New York who have literally been like, dude, I didn't vote for Trump. I've never been a right wing. Don't really like the Democrats either. But what's happening is completely insane for you to say this is all about saving lives. And if you don't do it, I hope you die. I mean, it's abundantly clear that it's not about saving lives. The same thing with how we started the show. And you walked through a hallway towards the weight room without a mask on. It has nothing to do with health. And
somebody just narcs on him.
Yeah, it's
crazy. On, so the Toronto Star did apologize. I can't find it. I know I read it earlier this morning. So just to be completely fair, the Toronto Star did apologize, but they aren't a great publication. And here's just something that I found when they were when looking for it. A tweet they removed in 2019 asking a Sikh candidate, he's the leader of the furthest left party in Canada, what issues are close to your heart? Where is the best place to get butter chicken roti? The people want to know. So by their own rules, of course, that would be considered very racist. And then I also saw this one from a couple days or a couple months ago in April. Toronto Star apologizes for photo suggesting wealthy Jewish leaders take our money and fail us. So the Toronto Star is clearly very left. And there's no getting around that. So they did apologize, but they're not a good newspaper. They're easily the most biased newspaper in the country in terms of ones with very large reach, and I have no problem saying that. Even the Toronto Sun, which is right wing and old conservative, like almost neocon right wing, they're still not as far right as Toronto Star is far left. I want to get to the Tatum report, Eric, talking about Afghanistan, which is a issue surely not to get us what's the word, shadow banned. White House says another attack on Afghanistan is likely. Now, I was talking about this with friends last night, and I had mentioned earlier this week that a teenager who plays Call of Duty or Battlefield or something to that regard could have had a better extraction plan. They could have had a better airport defense plan. And they even gave the Taliban a list of people not to kill, which obviously is not going to be what they do with that list. So they're basically taking these, and it's all kids under 22, the people who died in Afghanistan. You're basically saying, hey, kids, with your sergeant there, stay and protect yourselves against like 200,000 people flooding this airport. The Taliban is the one deciding who lets people in. So obviously they're going to let some bad people in just because it's easy to. Of course, another attack is likely. What conspiracy hole can we go down here, Eric? Or are you going to take a straightforward approach to this?
Well, I think that maybe I think this isn't even a conspiracy at this point, is that nobody is this bad accidentally, right? Mm-hmm. This takes effort to be this bad at the job. So while everything is happening in Afghanistan, we should not forget that the Department of Homeland Security, which I believe was created by George W. Bush, who was not to be trusted, called a good portion of Americans terrorists, right? So they look at us and they say, you don't want to wear a mask, you're a terrorist. You think that there might have been something a little bit unsavory about the election, you're a terrorist. And a week later, actual terror attacks happen in Afghanistan after the pullout. So this is not by chance. Again, I don't even think that's conspiratorial at this point. This is almost like maybe you've seen that meme where it's like, we destabilize a country and then the unvetted refugees come here and then the terrorism happens here. But now, because people who don't want to wear masks are also considered terrorists, everybody's in the fray. And not to mention the southern border. Let's not forget about that. That's also still happening. Let's not forget about the money printing. Let's not forget about Newsom ruining the state of California and the LA Times calling Larry Elder the blackface of white supremacy. I mean, Newsom is clearly shaking in his boots. All the momentum is with the right. And after Cuomo goes down, maybe this is getting a little bit far away from the Afghanistan thing, but we can see it all kind of happening. And I think anybody pretending that they're completely unrelated is a little bit out of touch. And this is all part of a plan. Now, I don't know what the end goal is. I guess it's just complete authoritarian control. Like, if everything's chaotic and there's terrorist attacks going on here across the other side of the world, and we're importing possible terrorists here, then of course we need more control because we're the only ones that are going to be able to stop it. It's classic, set up a problem that you can solve, that you can claim to solve.
People are saying, and here's where I get in with the conspiracy of whether or not you think this, and my friends and I were talking about this last night. It's so bad that people think that it might have been on purpose. It was such a bad plan. Obviously, who would not think, let's get all of our people out and all the people we want to protect out first? Who would not think that? I don't understand. That's why I say a teenager could have a better plan. If you're playing a video game and you want your players to survive to the end of the round, take them out of the place you plan on dropping the Call of Duty nuke on before everybody get out of the spot that we're dropping this weapon on before we do it. It's the same sort of idea. So the conspiracy implies that it's such a bad pullout that it might have been on purpose. And I'm not saying this, but they left so many vehicles. Here's an article from CNN. They left 80,000 vehicles. The Taliban now has a full military. And if I can just quickly find that number in there. Yeah, 80,000 vehicles. They gave Afghan forces 600,000 light weapons, such as M16s, and nearly 80,000 vehicles, as well as night vision radios. And now they also have Black Hawk helicopters. They have more Black Hawk helicopters than anyone besides the United States. 18 million rounds in the last 2 years of 50 cal 7.62, which is usually used for AKs. Those are the big rounds that most likely won't be stopped by bulletproof vests. So they have a full-fledged military. Did you see that picture of them mocking Iwo Jima? The Taliban wears American gear, and they're putting up a Taliban flag. Now, what I think goes along with that conspiracy of what people are saying is they've got all this equipment. It was such a bad pullout. They've got an air force now, which is crazy. Now there's this group they're calling ISIS-K. And is that Joe Biden and everybody, of course, allegedly not confirmed at all? Is that the same thing we saw with ISIS in like places like Syria, where Al Qaeda, and ISIS too, but U.S. funding them to fight other groups that they don't like? So now we've got the Taliban in a place where it's more stabilized because we don't have to be there, and they're just taking their totalitarian crazy approach. And we've got another group that we can fund, which is called ISIS-K, which is going to scare people because of the name ISIS. We've got them battling, and now are they just being used to protect their own investments? Like, they've set up all this infrastructure over the years, and now they can just hand it over to the Taliban, and they're treating them like we've seen Biden and Trudeau treat them like they're a legitimate government. Oh, we hope they're going to do the right thing. They're going to have a feminist, balanced government. And they're talking about them like they're this real government. So that's where the conspiracies are coming in, as if this was all set up because it's so unbelievably bad. Do you have any comment on this?
No, I think that's, again, I don't really even think it's that conspiratorial, right? When we're talking about the president of the United States, the leader of the once free world, nobody is that bad at the job, right? You just can't be that bad. I mean, like you said, this could a high school sophomore could figure this out, and it kind of runs parallel to the vaccine push, right? So they're going to tell you that the vaccine's free, it's free, it's free. Go get it, go get it, go get it. You're not going to be able to do anything without it. But obviously, some backdoor deals have happened between Pfizer and the government or whatever. Do you think that the guys over at Pfizer were diligently working on a vaccine for the past, year for free? No, of course a backdoor deal has happened. It's similar with this. It's like this feeds the even when I was growing up as a kid, people used to talk about the military industrial complex. So you can say, oh, we're going to end this war, we're going to pull these people out, but you do it so awful that of course you have the country's going to collapse, the real government's going to collapse, and now you have a reason to start it all over. It's like you just sort of kickstarted the whole thing over. You got this ISIS-K remix, whatever variant, new variant type of thing.
Right,
it's very
remix.
similar. It's right. Yeah, right. Like, isn't ISIS-K kind of parallel to Delta variant? It's like, oh, this one's worse. This one's worse.
It's fair.
It's going to kill you. So you have to think. I mean, if you thought that, if you're still buying the line of all these new variants and the vaccine's going to save your life and just do what they say to get back to normal, then perhaps you are more likely to believe that. I don't think even on the left, I don't think people see Joe Biden as having done a good job. Now, of course, they're still going to blame Trump. Like, well, Trump's, his deal was to get him out in May, blah, blah, blah. So they're still going to throw that in there. But even the furthest left weirdos, the furthest left Kool-Aid drinking, like the government knows what's best for me, people are like, hey, this didn't really make any sense. Except for I did see Michael Moore. Remember Michael Moore, Bowling for Columbine?
He's
all
gigantic.
That, whatever. Yeah. He did take to Instagram to sort of defend Joe Biden and say, well,
of course,
it was time to leave. So I'm not saying there's nobody out there who there are some people who are still praising Joe Biden and saying he's doing a good job, but even CNN kind of turning on him. Even the Washington Post,
which is
why has sort of been critical.
But when these obviously biased organizations who love the Biden, Clinton, Obama regime, let's call it.
I mean, they are one. They are together for all. You know what I mean? Like, they're.
My point is, it's suspicious when they suddenly start telling the truth.
No,
when they suddenly start pointing this stuff out, it's suspicious.
No,
we're just conditioned that way by them. So the latest poll, I shouldn't say the latest. A poll that I read was 60% of Democrat voters thought Biden did a bad job with this. So obviously, it was a big stain on him. But if all, like I said, the people are talking about on the Reddits, probably not Reddit, the Reddits, the channels, the Twitters, that this was also they could set up infrastructure like so that they can use the Taliban as a trading vessel. As I go back to video games when you can have a vessel state or a vassal state, whatever it's called, where you just basically your military might reigns over them, but you still just use them and to operate independently, then maybe that's possible. I don't know. You want to get to this last story you sent me about this woman getting fired because she didn't want to wear her mask? Is that what it's about?
No, so it's actually the
Okay.
opposite. It's actually the opposite. So this Atlanta Constitution Journal, I think it's called, if you read the first couple of paragraphs, they hype it up. Oh, Georgia's dying. Everybody's dying of COVID. Oh, the numbers, the cases, blah, blah, blah. But when you get down to it, it says that she tried to stand up to the university and say that she wasn't going to teach classes. She wasn't going to
without
teach
mandatory
classes.
masking.
Yes. And the
What's
university
face
was
firing?
I don't know what that is. That sounds kind of dirty. I don't know.
Firm skin sagging? Firing squads. That's not going to come up properly. Let's try Google. DuckDuckGo. I try to support you, but unless you're searching for news articles that aren't going to be shown, then DuckDuckGo isn't the greatest.
I do like DuckDuckGo specifically for the news articles.
Yeah,
and I don't know what face fire. What is it? I don't know.
Mandatory masking or face firing. I don't know what the. She manages labs on the campus, offered to teach online. It didn't matter. How about people paid to come to your campus, so they should be able to come to your campus? Terrible formatting by this website, by the way, too. Universities and colleges nationwide are requiring vaccines and masks as they reopen. Public campuses in Georgia require neither. Oh my goodness, these pieces of crap.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
So she's a martyr because she refused to teach without mandatory vaccines and masks. Okay, yes, well, go to a state, I guess. I mean, it's hard for me to say the other way, but yeah, where you will be wielded as a hero, yielded as a hero. I don't know. Eric, what are you up to this week?
I don't know, man. I'm actually getting my mentally ready to move once again. So I'm spending a lot of time on Zillow and apartments.com and trying to learn a little bit about the lay of the land there. So I'm excited for that. Like I mentioned, this new Kanye thing. I was at the gym this morning and I go to check my Instagram and they're like, Donda dropped. I'm like, okay, I guess now I can leave the gym, listen to this album a little bit. And I want to say, for the record, I have a little bit of smoke for the Kanye haters out there, because a lot of people were talking about, oh, Kanye is not really a Christian. He's pretending, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, Kanye West is a rapper. So if you were looking to Kanye for spiritual advice, then you're barking up the wrong tree. This is a man who once rapped about anal bleach transferring from a stripper to his t-shirt. So if you're looking for him for your perfect godly wisdom, then you're aiming in the wrong direction. And then secondly, he also talked about how Christians were the most judgmental of him. If you listen to Kanye's music as I do, and you go back one album ago to 2 albums ago, actually, to Jesus is King, he talks about how when I came out as a Christian, who was the first people to judge me? Were the Christians. So they walked right into that trap. And lastly, and this is the one that triggers me the most, is people have sent me this article numerous times on Instagram. Kanye West fans are being offered the vaccine at the show. And it's like, okay, think about this, guys. Those stadiums that hold up to 50, 60,000 people were offering the shot months ago. When Yankee Stadium started doing it, when Citi Field started doing it, when the parks out in California, Oracle Arena, because they thought everybody wanted it. So we're going to open up these huge arenas, these huge stadiums to give people this shot. And it turned out people didn't really want it, but they've been doing that for months. So when Kanye shows up, the media snakes that they are, they try to link him to the vaccine because they know that he is far more influential than Joe Biden could ever hope to be. And it's sad that these people who claim to be, like I mentioned, incredibly critical thinkers, and they call out the fake news media all the time, just post this headline of Kanye West offering vaccines without really thinking about what's actually happening. So that's all the smoke I have for the Kanye haters. This 26-track, 2-hour-long album, I think is going to be amazing. I'm only got like almost halfway through it this morning, and I plan on enjoying the rest of it later today. So that's it. That's my Kanye rant.
Does it sound more like what's his mental health album there?
With the Pablo album? Or
the one after that.
Yay, the 7-track album, the little with the mountains on the cover and the Wyoming.
Does it sound more like that, or what's the sound here?
Dude, the sound so far is it's got hints of the old Kanye, right? So there's some songs on there where he's like rapping, like, and fun fact, there's no swearing on the album. It's clean. There's no parental advisory on it. And if I had to take a guess, and we could revisit this years down the road, I think this will be his last. I think this will be his kind of crowning achievement. It's gonna it's basically everything that he's worked for. So from College Dropout to all the phases, the love lockdown, the Taylor Swift turning to God, Jesus Christ, all that stuff is all culminated in this one album. And I think this will probably be his last. I mean, he's 44 years old, bro. You can only rap for so long.
Really? I didn't know he was that old. Still waiting on Detox, Eric.
True
why not?
Story.
We thought we were close in 2009 when he had the mixtape with Eminem, but I need a doctor.
Detox is not happening.
All right, Eric Butler, TatumReport.com. Buy his book on Amazon. It's behind me. He's probably got it right here. It's upside down. Very good. New York City 2020. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew Says TV if you're not watching there. Follow me on YouTube for this podcast on Andrew Says if you're watching on Twitter. Mixing in both worlds. rebelnews.com/Andrew Says or Andrew_says. Those are two different links, you guys, on rebelnews.com to watch my videos and or my show. Thank you to Gary Sheffield Jr. I hope we can get more people in that sphere. He's way more he's even better than I hoped he would be. I'll word it that way so it doesn't come out wrong. But love that guy. I love following his Twitter, Eric. I know you hate Twitter, but his is entertaining. It's great to see somebody in the sports world not speak like they're afraid to, they're afraid of what Twitter's going to say. That's basically 99% of sports journalists. They're all afraid to be kicked out of the club. So Eric Butler on TatumReport.com, Report and Opine. Anything to say, Eric, before I set the outro here?
Nope.
Buy my book. Buy my book. Words are violence. That's why there's no words in it.